bit as if we've got to the top of the beginning of a roller coaster, isn't it? Click, 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 and here we go down. It's going to be quite a ride, isn't it?
It's going to be such an adventure and so exciting. And
you excited?
I think it's. I
am too.
Trump,
yeah.
Trump is a phenomenon, isn't he? I don't like him, but he's an extraordinary politician. The way he generates headlines, fizzing with ideas, full of enthusiasm. Keir Starmer, take note.
Right.
Full of poison, bigotry and hatred. I noticed Peter Manson, Lord Manson, who's going to be the next UK ambassador to Washington, talked about him being consequential.
Yeah.
And I think that's right. He will have consequences.
He'll make the weather.
But it doesn't mean they will be positive. I think that's where people will be split. He goes back. I mean, it is a remarkable comeback to win, lose, despite the fact he doesn't admit he lost and he had an attempted coup. And he will be sworn in where his people tried to stop Joe Biden being legitimately confirmed as president. And he's back. I mean, that is remarkable. And he goes back stronger, but America is more divided.
It hasn't happened for 100 years that the president loses out of office and then comes back. It is an extraordinary achievement. He's the reason we've seen hostages released.
He is one of the reasons.
It's nothing to do with Biden.
No.
It was Trump.
I think Biden's administration did a lot of the negotiations, a lot of the heavy lifting. They worked closely with Trump's team at the end, and Netanyahu does not want to anger Trump because, of course, when Trump was president last time, he broke the international consensus and moved the US embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Netanyahu will think he'll get a better deal from Trump, so he didn't want to anger him. So, yes, he played a role in the Gaza ceasefire,
it was Trump.
but it wasn't solely him.
Are other leaders frightened of Trump in a way that they weren't frightened of Biden?
Because he's unpredictable and erratic. I think that's the difficulty for them. And you never know what he's going to say, what he's going to do. And he's America first. That's his policy. America first and foremost.
But that being yes, because he's unpredictable. He's a loose cannon. You don't know where he's going to fire. But his allies are frightened too. Possibly his allies more than America's traditional enemies. And there's a problem with organisations like NATO and a world order that is breaking down. The world order based on rules and laws is breaking down, and Trump will be part of that. When you need to rebuild them.
Is he going to bear grudges as the days and weeks unfold now? Are we going to see him settling scores with Labour?
He does, but he likes people to repent. That's what he really likes, and to grovel. And I've watched Keir Starmer, who never really over-criticised him, but David Lammy did, the Foreign Secretary. Likening him to the Ku Klux Klan, white supremacist, neo-Nazi, and he's now grovelling. And that's what he likes. And I thought Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, spoke a truth.
What was it to do with
the rest of his colleagues in the Labour cabinet, in the Labour government, wanted to distance themselves from. But Sadiq Khan spoke a truth about the rise of the far right and the spectre of fascism haunting Europe again.
So one of the people who's going to be there today is Nigel Farage, because obviously Donald Trump much closer to Nigel Farage than to Sir Keir Starmer. So what does this mean for Nigel Farage and the Reform Party? I mean, this really boosts him in America and as a consequence, over here as well.
Without a doubt. And it's quite significant. There was a party for Nigel Farage on Friday night in Washington. And who was there? The next ambassador, Peter Manson. Who'd have thought Peter Manson would be at a party in honour of Nigel Farage, the father of Brexit? Peter Manson was an EU trade commissioner. He was a big opponent of Brexit, hates Brexit, but he knows that Farage can help open doors to the Trump White House. It's an extraordinary position for Farage to be in, and he'll use it for all he wants. And actually, to be fair to Farage, he said that he thought Manson would be a good appointment as ambassador because he's clever.
And the other key to good relations, apparently the royal family. We know that Donald Trump adored the late Queen, loved that visit over to the UK, showed off photographs as part of his campaign for president, had a long meeting with Prince William when Notre Dame Cathedral reopened over in Paris, and apparently rearranged his schedule because he loved talking to Prince William so much. So, do you think that extending a royal invitation, either the royals going over to the States on some kind of tour, 2026, or an extension of a state visit over here?
Well, I wrote a piece about Manson on Saturday in the Mail, and I said already there's talk that he's trying to get a visit to the States by William, and if Princess of Wales went too, wow. And that would be an incredible... I mean, Trump would be so thrilled. And I think also, although he's had a state visit here, there's a great possibility he could be invited back for another state visit.
And would that then be part of a negotiation over don't put extra taxes on British goods going into the States, because that would damage our economy so much?
Yes.
Is that the deal?
Yes, I think Farage will over-egg it. He does have influence, but he will over-egg his influence. We saw he's falling out with Elon Musk. His best buddy going to give us loads of money, and then all of a sudden Elon Musk says he should be replaced as leader. But the poor royal family, first time I'm ever going to be sympathetic, probably the last as well. They are going to be used as meet and greeters to flatter
It's
Trump.
called soft power, and that's what the monarchy is, and royal family is. It's soft power, and we deploy it brilliantly.
Well, that would... Kevin, because you're a Republican, that would justify the amount of money put into the royal family, wouldn't it?
I'm not sure.
If they were able to achieve that kind of deal.
I'm not sure it will justify 350 million quid a year or whatever it is we pay once you include security and everything else. But if you've got a royal family, you might as well use them. And he is susceptible to flattery. Of course, He's got a Scottish-born mother, so he's always had that affinity with the UK, which Starmer is ladling on, just ladle after ladle after ladle of it. And William and Kate send him out. He'll love it. So the royal family goes to America, and then you
wall-to-wall coverage.
But Andrew, we've already got Harry and Meghan out there.
I know.
Yes, can they stay there, please?
Can they have Andrew too? Can we send him? But of course,
Prince Andrew?
Trump is unpopular in the UK. So Starmer will be spending some political capital if he rolls out the red carpet and says you can have a carriage ride up the Mall and everything like that. But he will do that because he knows Trump is a kind of... stars, he likes. There's a name for what he is. But I won't use it. But they will use the royal family.
But how quickly will Starmer see the president? Because Theresa May was the first. She was
7
there,
days.
7 days.
Yeah.
That awkward moment when he was holding her hand. Remember? Well, it did her no good at all.
No good at all.
But it showed about the special relationship. I don't think Trump's going to.
The problem is
Starmer won't be there anything like this.
The problem is too many British politicians make the so-called special relationship look a needy relationship where they're desperate to see a president and Americans at any cost, while the Americans do not spend as much time obsessing about this so-called special relationship.
No, that's so interesting because Richard mentioned earlier that only 8 out of every 100 Americans
I've ever heard of Starmer.
Had no clue. Whereas,
I'm surprised it's that
whereas
high,
99 out of
92% of people don't know who he is. They think he might be a serial killer.
No.
They think he might be a TV soap star. Honestly, they've never heard of him.
Whereas everyone here knows who Trump is.
Of course
don't they?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
But one is the leader of the world's preeminent superpower still, and the other is the head of, let's be honest, a Midland European country.
Yeah, but it's his ability to generate headlines. That's what Trump's
Just a little wrinkle out of some of the things he's promising to do, which is I mean, this will please conspiracy theorists everywhere. Releasing finally the final files of the JFK assassination. What more can we learn from them? I mean, don't we sort of know what happened? That Lee Harvey Oswald took him out on his own?
Or was he put up to it? That's the point.
What are we expecting to find? Anything?
I don't know. I mean, that's what I'd like to see those files. I do wonder why they would still be locked up. And maybe to spare the blushes of people who missed, security checks, or there may be people alive who were accused who are innocent. But you would like to see those. But of course, he's encouraged a movement dominated by conspiracy theorists.
But interesting because there's a Kennedy in his administration.
Yeah, RFK Jr.
Yeah. So fascinating. He's the health secretary, isn't he?
Yeah, the anti-vaxxer.
Yeah, fascinating. It's an enduring fascination, isn't there, about who shot JFK? So I think it'd be amazing to see those files.
Now, let's bring our attention back to domestic matters. Ministers are being warned that they must rein in the £65 billion on health-related handouts because our benefits bill costs more than our defence budget. £57 billion goes to the military. It's interesting because last week I spoke to the Deputy Chancellor, Darren Jones, about this. Are you going to cut the benefits bill? He didn't rule it out.
No.
Said that they're going to encourage more people to go back to work, and the Lords are looking into this. The chairman of the Lords Economic Affairs Committee, the health benefit system is financially unsustainable, wastes human potential and does not work for anybody. Now, this would strike fear into a lot of people's hearts over here, because people rely on those benefits, and particularly people with disabilities who cannot work, don't want the rules changed around what they can claim. Do you think this is likely? Is this going to happen? Is the Labour government going to slash the benefits bill?
I think every government I can remember has attempted to try and reduce it, and it hasn't worked. It's gone up over a period of time. But it's always easy and a broad sweep to say, get out all the shirkers or fiddlers or whatever. But then you come down to individual cases and you look at people and you find out their conditions. And yes, there will be a few people on the margins. The figures are always small. In fact, they save far more on means testing and people not claiming what they're due than it has ever gone in.
So 3.7 million working-age Brits are now on sickness benefit. But here's the key figure. Since 2020, COVID and the lockdown, 1.2 million more are claiming that either the effects of COVID...
Or they didn't go back to work.
Or the lockdown.
But this is a new threshold. We're spending more on this than we are on defence. That's a threshold.
And there's another figure that I find chilling. More than 10 million of people are economically inactive. Why so many? Why are so many people sick now? Why are we so sick now?
They're not all sick. Some people have retired early. Others are carers. So they're not
but
all...
the 3.7 million on taking benefits,
everybody who is so-called economically inactive, not having a job, doesn't mean they're claiming benefits.
And apparently, we now have Sickfluences, according to the Daily Telegraph. This is... Sickfluences who advise how you can claim on the Access to Work scheme. Claimants can get nearly 70 grand a year for equipment and support, including work coaches, noise-cancelling headphones and Apple smartwatches. The paper says the DWP is increasingly alarmed at the spiralling cost of the scheme, with around a third of all demand driven by people claiming financial support for mental health conditions. And a search on social media reveals dozens of users highlighting the benefits of this scheme, which was initially launched to help deaf and blind people.
Yeah, no one's ever, as far as I'm aware, has ever claimed or received that amount of money.
What, 70,000 a year? I hope not.
No, I don't think anyone's got that. I'm not against this in principle of people going online, because you can go to your Citizens Advice Bureau or another voluntary group and they'll say how you do it. It's if anybody online is saying this is how you fiddle it.
Yeah.
Right.
That would be the issue. But if somebody's saying if you've got these conditions, these are the forms, that's how you do it. If they were influencers online saying this is how you claim your winter fuel allowance, which is very complicated, then you would not object.
No.
If they were saying lie about your age or pretend you've got a condition you haven't, then you would condemn that. So I'm not necessarily, I don't think it's automatically wrong in every case here.
In the meantime, the government is going to come under huge pressure from Trump, possibly this week, to up defence spending. Are we going to do that? Are we going to respond to that? Are we going to get up to 2.5%, 3.5%?
Well, there's no the commitment isn't it to get it to 2.5%, but we don't know when.
It's open-ended.
Yeah, but Trump would prefer us to be closer to 3%. The Tories said they were going to take it to 3%. Of course, they're not in power now, so it's easy to say that. I don't think there's going to be any rush by this government to do it. They're trying to cut spending.
Time after time, Britain is one of the world's biggest defence spenders in cash terms, or 6 or 7, something like that. The US is way ahead of the next 7 or 8 countries all combined. We pay more than the NATO 2% in the club. We exceed that. I think it's 2.35%. Yeah. I'd rather see a better bang for the buck and stop the waste on procurement where equipment is delivered late, doesn't do what it was supposed to and costs far more than was intended. I would think that is far better. Now, the US spends about 5% on defence, but the US looks across the Atlantic and also across the Pacific, which is why they spend so much, because they're into...
But don't you sense a real change in the weather now? Because I personally do. That there is a change in the atmosphere and the relationship between America and the rest of the world, that we've always leaned on them, basically.
Yeah.
We've always let them pick up the tab, and Trump isn't going to do that
I think so. And he, even his commitment to NATO has to be challenged, because he's sick to death of a lot of countries not paying their share into NATO, so why should America
and then relying on the
pick up
states
the bill?
to help them
he's
out.
getting sick to death, and I think that's quite right.
You know,
pay up.
As Trump threatens Britain, if only there was a family of European nations that the UK could be in to have security on our own, with our neighbours, biggest trading partners, knows rely on them. If only there
was no fan
family
of the
European nations.
He was no fan of the European Union, Donald Trump.
Well, you know what? And why was he not a fan? Because it stand up to the USA, because it's big enough. Britain individually is small.
Yeah. I'm sure they're quaking their boots thinking about that Ursula von der Leyen woman who's in charge of the EU. I bet she's a household name in America.
He is make America great again.
Of course
You've got to remember, he's not going to be acting in British interests, he's going to be acting in American interests.
Well, they all do.
That's his job.
But to degrees, and people...
That's his job.
People see interests in different ways. Some see it through cooperation and partnership, others see it through confrontation.
There's a fascinating story in The Sun this morning, which is that a college, Nottingham College, has hired a tutor for its students, not to teach academic subjects, but to help them make phone calls.
Amazing.
Because there is a fear of calling people. Now, this is careers advisors, according to The Sun, giving tips on interview skills, found it was a need. Simply making a phone call is difficult for teenagers, and they help them role-play scenarios like calling a phone broadband provider, making a GP appointment, or calling in sick. Now, you rolled your eyes at this, but of course everything's online.
Yeah.
People tend to email,
or
they
text.
tend to text, or do they're WhatsApping each other, or they're snapping, Snapchatting
they just don't speak to each other.
They don't speak to each other on the phone.
Yeah, but they don't speak to each other at all. I mean, you hear stories about children in the same household texting each other in the same house. Well, it's gone mad.
So I tell you,
I'm afraid I'm guilty of that.
Well,
I'll text dinner's ready.
Yeah, but there we are.
I tell you, the noisy teenagers who got on my train from Newcastle to
you wish
King's
they
Cross
were
at
texting each other.
Darlington yesterday, they were talking to each other, I tell you. Oh, God.
You see, I don't think this is a bad idea. Because
Nor do
actually, if you are used to online or even face-to-face, because as you say, teens definitely talk to each other face-to-face loudly on trains. And I remember doing it myself, so let's not look down our noses at it. But it can be intimidating to make those phone calls. And actually, they're so complicated, those phone calls, aren't they? You have to wade through ages of press 1 for this, 2 for that, 3 for the other. So actually, training young people in how to make an important phone call, not a bad idea.
Teach to use keyboards older people who are used to the phone. Now, you've got keyboards, keypads, younger people who don't do the phone. I think it's a shame they can't do both, and you need to teach them. But if they can't, it is better. And it's getting people ready for work and life.
Exactly.
And if people at home haven't taught them for whatever reason, then I think it's good a college is doing it. I know we can mock it, and I raise my eyebrows a little too. But it's when you stop and think about it, it makes sense.
Exactly.
But it's not just making calls. Apparently, according to the same poll, a quarter of kids, really, between 18 and 34, are terrified of answering the phone. When the phone rings, they don't like picking it up.
Particularly if it's their mum.
Yeah, I know.
I've noticed.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm in my kids' phone till you see Dad comes up when they don't answer.
I suppose fewer people have landlines at work now, again, because all the communication is done by email, I suppose. Yeah. That's the problem. I think it's a sad reflection on our times.
Right, what about this? If you are having a fry-up, and you might be having a fry-up right now, you've got your hash browns, you've got your sausages, you've got your bacon, you've got your beans.
Don't forget his black pudding.
And an egg, please, and some tomatoes.
Would you then pour gravy?
No, that's disgusting. That's disgusting.
No,
I love gravy. I love gravy, but not on a fryer.
Best Western hotels asked customers about their breakfast habits and found that 1 in 10 people put gravy
Gross.
on their fry-up.
How do you make gravy, though, from a fry-up?
They're the best
How can you
Western.
make it?
You don't make it from a fry-up. You get the bisto or the whatever gravy granules, and you make
just
gravy and
kettle.
pour it over your fry-up.
Yuck.
I've seen where Best Western are in in the league tables of hotels. But no,
It's tomato ketchup or brown sauce
I've
with
never-
a fry-up.
I
That's it.
hate to say it, I think 1 in 10 were pulling Best Western's leg about this.
Yeah. It just sounds horrible.
But I am happy to be proved wrong. 2% of our viewers have always said, yes, gravy on a fry-up. So, obviously there's a market out there.
I love gravy.
Mixing
but
with the egg.
Yeah, vile.
I've never.
Imagine it with scrambled egg.
I've never. I've got a wide range of friends with lots of different tastes. I've never heard this.
I've never
Gravy
heard
on sausages, yes, that's the
I-
only part of the fry-up
yeah,
I can
yeah,
agree
I
with.
agree.
Gravy on sausages, mash and onion,
Very
some
nice.
peas or something. Lovely, lovely. But not on a fried egg, tin tomatoes.
And finally, one of the things that Trump has done already is he's lifted the moratorium on TikTok. Are you pleased, you guys? Are you back on TikTok? Have you
I'm
ever
not on
watched
it.
TikTok in your life?
I didn't think it should. I didn't think it should be banned in the States because he's lifted the moratorium because he says he's very popular on TikTok.
Yeah.
And I always think he says he's a free speech advocate. He's an advocate for his own free speech.
It's where a lot of
That's
young
all it
people get their news, so I think it's really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
I do as well. And of course there are security concerns, but aren't there concerns about what Elon Musk can see on X and Twitter, what Facebook, Zuckerberg can get? And it's going to be interesting at the inauguration today, the difference. The tech billionaires, multi-billionaires will be there in force. Zuckerberg, Bezos and
Elon Musk.
Will you be having a kind of an inauguration party in your office?
I don't think we have a party. We're a bit too busy.
I'll watch it. Well, I mean, a week.
You'll watch it.
I might have a week.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon our time, midday,
Who wanted that
Washington
useless
time.
Kamala Harris? She was hopeless.
Me?
She was
I'd have voted for her.
She was useless.
I'm usually on the losing side.
Yes, you are.